Thanks for supporting the channel by clicking the links in the description box. And thank you so much for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And now let's get into this podversation. What's up, guys? We're gonna have a conversation about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and I'm just going to touch on a few things. This is not going to be a long episode, but I've talked about Meghan Markle a little bit in the past. If you haven't listened to one of those episodes, just go into the playlist and listen to it before you make a comment. Because here's the thing when it comes to Meghan Markle. I know there's some people that love her, there's some people that hate her. And there's some people who feel like if you are a person who is white and you're making a comment about Meghan Markle, then that makes you a racist. And I stated that I don't believe that is the case. But are there some people who are racist that don't like Meghan Markle? Well, of course, because racist people don't tend to like people who are not their race. And so that just goes without saying. But there are also people who feel that if you are black and you make a comment about Meghan Markle that isn't like you worship this woman or that you adore her, you're a fan of hers, you're happy that she got into the royal family or whatever it is, then you're hating on her. And that is the furthest from the truth. Okay, so I just wanted to put that little statement out there, but people are going to think the way they want to think anyway, so that's neither here nor there. But I just felt the desire to go ahead and put that out there. But here's the thing. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they're just not honest. And I get it. They have this platform. They may not be having the titles that they used to carry before they got the ability to be able to leave out of the UK and live in the United States and live the life that Meghan Markle wants to live. That's what I'm saying. That's my opinion. I know that Prince Harry is the one that made the statements and all of those things about wanting to separate from that lifestyle but still be able to do some of the duties. And I guess the family said it's all or nothing. So it is what it is. They have had their titles stripped. Okay, but it's what they chose. And they're going to be okay because they're living the millionaire, very A-list lifestyle that Meghan Markle wanted to live in the first place. Because let's face it, before she got with Prince Harry, she was on the show that came on the USA network, Suits, that most of us never heard of. I never heard of the show before. But would she be living the life that she's living now if she didn't get with him or somebody of a very high caliber in society? No, she wouldn't. So they're not honest. They just aren't honest. Prince Harry, he recently had an interview and he made some statements about unconscious bias. And just to quote him, he's basically saying that he only became aware of unconscious racial bias after spending time in his wife's shoes, Meghan Markle. And it's like, really? I mean, I get it. You may not have cared about it, but to say you weren't aware of it is some bull, you know what. So this is what he said in this interview. Unconscious bias, from my understanding, having the upbringing and the education that I had no idea what it was. I had no idea it existed. And then, sad as it is to say, it took me many, many years to realize it, especially then living a day or a week in my wife's shoes. Whether it's politics or whether it's the media, where if you're not aware of your own bias and you're not aware of the culture within your system, then how are we ever going to progress? How are we ever going to get to that point where there is more fairness? Because it's not a zero-sum game, right? Everyone benefits if the black community gets treated the way they should be treated. Being a dad myself, the whole point in life, I guess for me, is to try to leave the world in a better place than when you found it. It's going to take every single one of us to really change things, and anyone that's pushing against it really needs to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror. I've had an awakening as such of my own. I wasn't aware of so many of the issues and so many of the problems within the UK, but also globally as well. I thought I did, but I didn't. When you go into a shop with your children and you only see white dolls, do you even think, that's weird, there is not a black doll there? I use that as just one example of where we as white people don't always have the awareness of what it must be like for someone else of a different colored skin, of a black skin, to be in the same situation as we are, where the world that we know has been created by white people for white people. It's not about pointing the finger. It is not about blame. I will be the first person to say again, this is about learning and about how we can make it better. I think it is a really exciting time in British culture and British history and in world culture. This is a real moment that we should be grasping and actually celebrating because no one else has managed to do this before us. But when there is just peaceful protest and when there is the intention of just wanting community and just wanting the recognition of equality, then that is a beautiful thing. While it has been challenging for a lot of people, certainly having to make this reckoning of historical significance that has got people to the place that they are, that is uncomfortable for people. We recognize that it is uncomfortable for us. Now, I'm not saying the things that he is saying is not true in these statements. Of course, a lot of these things are true statements, but him saying he was unaware of unconscious racial bias is bogus. He could have said it wasn't something that I paid attention to because it wasn't a part of my everyday life. It wasn't something that I had to deal with on my own. But he and his mom, who has passed on many, many years ago, and his brother, Prince William, they have made many trips back and forth to the continent of Africa, spent lots of time in South Africa. I mean, apartheid. Are you kidding me? He's never heard of apartheid? Never heard of Nelson Mandela? You know, for him to say that he was unaware of unconscious racial bias is a lie. It's not honest. And to me, this is just my opinion, it sounds like a lot of the statements that he's saying in this interview, it's coming from the mouth of his wife, because when she's been making statements, when we've had the opportunity to either hear her make a statement or see a comment or a quote of hers, that sounds more like something that she would say versus him. And I'm not saying that she told him to say these things, but just, of course, her having discussions with him about some of these things. But here's the other thing in terms of why I say Meghan Markle is not honest either. She's not honest. I don't want to just come right out and say she's just an outright liar, but she did lie about some things. I do not believe that she was unaware of who Prince Harry was. She said this before. She said that when they met, she didn't know who he was. Lie. She's not being honest when she says that. Let's just be real about it, okay? You can say, I've heard of him before, I've seen images of him, but because I don't get into the royal family, I'm not aware of all of the intricacies of all of that stuff that goes on, because I've never followed it. I've never been a part of the UK, the British culture. I've just been more wrapped up in my own life and the things that are going on over here. It just wasn't something that I ever followed, and I wasn't aware of it, but I knew who he was, but I never thought that I would meet him or something like that. But to say that you didn't know who Prince Harry was is a flat out lie. If she was, okay, she's older than him. Okay, she's older than Prince Harry. No, she's not 10 years older than he is, but she's also not 10 years younger than he is either. If she was half his age, in terms of her being younger than he is, then maybe we might believe her when she, says, I never knew who he was. I didn't know who Prince Harry was. She's not being honest with that. I just don't believe that. And here's the other thing. And guys, this is my viewpoint on what I see. So just take it for what it's worth. You have the right to disagree with it, but this is just from what I see. I have no issues with anyone that is of a different race. I have no issues with anyone who have a number of different races that they identify as, because their parents are not just one race. Because you are who you are. I get that. But I also do feel that people have the right to, if they, like Meghan Markle, she has an African American mother and her father is Caucasian. If you grew up in, say, different households, or maybe even in the same household, and you didn't grow up and the majority of your family were not of the other race, and you were more around one of the other races, so maybe you identify more with the Caucasian side, or maybe you identify more with the African American side. I don't understand that life, because that's not who I am or what I am. So of course I didn't grow up that way, but I understand when people identify with all of it, or also if they're just more prone to one of the ethnicities versus the other, then that's just what they do. And I'm not knocking them for that, because I get it. That can be a hard life. We all have issues that we deal with, and some are just different than others. Okay. But as an adult, and from what we've seen of her as an adult, a lot of people who may have a racial bias against her because of her African American mother, so they know that she is, partially African American, that's just what they do. But most people who just view her and just see her skin, see her hair, just look at her, you may not even know that her mother is African American. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with, someone not looking like they are partially African American, because there's no monolith when it comes to African Americans, and we come in so many different shades and sizes and different hair types and all of those different things like that. But she clearly identifies more with her Caucasian side than she does with her African American side when it comes to the looks, and also when it comes to her preferences in dating. And that's okay. I mean, if that's what she chooses to do. But I don't know if it's because she had a hard time growing up and she never really felt like she fit in with those who are African American, because when you look at images of her when she was younger, the few that you might be able to pull up, she's got the big froey, kinky type hair. It's not like 4C kinky hair, but she clearly keeps her hair straightened. And that's what I'm getting to. She keeps her hair straightened, and for the most part, it looks like the people that she identified with more as friends, they were mainly Caucasian. Now, she claims that Serena Williams is one of her best friends, but okay. Yeah, her mom is from Compton, so maybe her and Serena were friends when they grew up. I don't know. I don't know what the background is with that friendship slash relationship, but Meghan Markle, she sort of reminds me, I can think of this episode of Sanford and Son. And guys, this might date me, but I wasn't a little girl when the Sanford and Son show used to come on television. I've seen reruns of the show and I used to watch it, and it's funny. But there was this episode, and I'm going to try to play a clip of it. There was this doctor that came over to do a house call with Fred, and Fred offered him something to drink, and the doctor, he was like, "What is that?" And and Fred says, "Oh, well, if you have to ask, you couldn't be one of us. I just thought you were just trying to pass." Now, some of you may not get that, but there is a thing, and it used to be more so back in the day, where somebody who had an African American and a Caucasian, parent, maybe the father was one and the mother was the other, or, vice versa. If you were identified more as a Caucasian and people just saw you and thought that you were Caucasian, then you may get better treatment and get a fairer way through life versus somebody who, when you look at them, there's no doubt that they are not Caucasian. They may not even be African American. They may be Haitian, or they may be Dominican, or, whatever, Afro-Latina, but just looking at them, they clearly are not Caucasian. There have been people in the past, especially, that had that where they were easily passable. So if they got that pass, they were going to take it. And there's also this movie called The Imitation of Life. And with that movie, the mother was African American. They never showed the father. But the mother, who was African American, she was a maid. She cleaned up this woman's house. And the daughter, she had a Caucasian father. She looked like she was Caucasian. So she went through life passing. And when people found out that she was not Caucasian, she got treated badly. And she actually, I believe in the movie, was either going on a date or went on a date or was dating a Caucasian guy. And when he found out that her mother was African American, I can't remember if he beat her up or exactly what happened, but I do believe she was assaulted when they found out that she was not 100% Caucasian. Let's put it like that. And clearly, Meghan Markle is not ashamed of her mother, but in this movie, The Imitation of Life, this young lady, she was ashamed of her mother, and she didn't want people to know that her mother was who her mother was, because they lived in, I don't remember if they lived in the actual house or if there was a house or an apartment attached to the home of the woman that the African American mother, who was the maid, was cleaning. And so she wanted, the young girl, she wanted people to believe that the woman who owned the big house was her mother and not the maid. So she was so ashamed of her mother until her mother died. And, she came running into the church and fell onto the coffin and was crying over the coffin, apologizing, but it was too late. Now, clearly, Meghan Markle, she's not ashamed of her mother, at least at this point. There may have been some points when she was younger, though, where she may have had those moments where she wanted to be more identifying with her Caucasian side, because that's actually how she got into the acting field. Her father, who she has denounced and sued and and all of these different crazy things that came out during the time of the upcoming wedding that she was going to have to Prince Harry, he worked in that industry. And that's really how she got on. She got on with her dad. And sometimes the dynamics of children and the relationships that they have with parents, they evolve and they change. So you may be more closer to one parent when you're younger, and then when you're older, you're more closer with the other parent, or it could be vice versa. Or you may have a really great relationship with your parents when you're younger, and then when you grow up, you don't have a relationship with your parents at all due to different factors that may have happened in your life as you grew up and get older. So it appears as if when Meghan was younger, she did have a relationship with her mother and her father. She looked a bit more on the, the mixed, as they say, but you could tell she was, mixed side, because definitely her hair was the bigger, kinkier, wavy, curlier hair. But now as an adult, you've never seen her with the curly hair. You've never seen her with her hair natural. it's always pressed, it's always flat ironed, it's always blown out. And when she looks like that, if you don't know, you would just think that she's just a brunette Caucasian woman. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a Caucasian brunette woman. I have friends that are. But I'm just saying she definitely has gone through life more so passing. And I wouldn't even say that she made it her attempt to pass. But it's just because of the way she looks. And it's like, I don't see her as being the type that if someone said that she was Caucasian, that she would deny it and say, no, I'm actually biracial, or my mother's African American, or I'm African American, because there are some people who are biracial and they will still just identify as being African American. She strikes me as the type that more identifies as Caucasian, but because she loves her mother, because they have a close relationship, at least now, she's not wanting to deny her roots, especially when it comes to denying her mother, because to deny that side of her would be to deny her mother at this point, and she loves her mom, clearly. But she's not honest. She definitely knew who Prince Harry was, and now being in the status and being in the position that she is, being married to this man, this was the life that she wanted. And she didn't want the life of the service. And I talked about this before. I stated this in my other video about her. She didn't want the life of service. She really thought that it was just a fairy tale sort of lifestyle. And I know that there are people going to say, well, she was always doing things for charity. Big freaking deal. She thought it was going to be something that it wasn't. And that lifestyle of a royal, even though it comes with a huge amount of benefits, they are seen more as public servants versus, you're just living a life of pomp and circumstance. And that's really what she thought it was going to be. So yeah, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they're just really not honest. And I just thought I would talk about that and mention it, because even though I know Meghan Markle gets trolled a lot, I am not trolling her. I am sharing my views on what I see and what she portrays. And now with Prince Harry stepping in and saying that he was unaware of unconscious bias based on his background of all of the trips back and forth to the continent of Africa, all of the time they've spent back and forth in South Africa, and all of the different things, it's just not true. But it's definitely true that he probably didn't care about it. It wasn't something that was affecting him. So it wasn't something that was on his agenda. It wasn't something that was on his radar. Of course, he wasn't going to go into a store where there are nothing but dolls that are white and ask the question, why are there no black dolls? Why are there no Latino dolls? Why are there no Asian dolls? Like, it's not something that he was going to ever ask or care about, because it wasn't something that directly affected him. So I would love to know what your thoughts are in the comment section about this. Let me know your thoughts. And until the next episode, have an amazingly blessed and beautiful day.